Welcome to KRA's The Hub, the official podcast of KRA Corporation. And now get ready to hear workforce topics and trends you need to know on the go.
All right. Well, welcome back to KRA's The Hub podcast. We are excited for today's series of episodes. Myself and many of my KRA colleagues were at the recent Raising the Bar conference in Maryland. And just want to thank the Maryland Workforce Association for putting on this conference. It was a workforce conference that featured over 1,000 guests, 1,000 members, workforce development professionals, leaders, folks that work on the front lines. We also had the opportunity to meet many great vendors and organizations that are actually supporting the workforce development industry. I was joined by a series of episode recordings with my colleague, Derek Colbert. Derek, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. It's good to be back with you.
You as well. And Derek, we had the opportunity to talk with a lot of individuals. It ranged from folks that are working on the front lines, leaders of organizations, vendors that are providing services within workforce development. As we were a part of that, as you think back to the experience that we had there, what are some of the things that you think that our audience will be able to glean from these episodes?
Great question. As I reflect on the Raising the Bar workforce development conference, and just the series of folks that we had the opportunity to interview, I really feel like the audience truly going to enjoy this podcast series right here, because we heard from everyone that's offering services for returning citizens, a very robust conversation around that. The young lady that's a former KRA employee that's now working for Employee Prince George's County that's doing some excellent work within the youth development space. Our former colleague, John Hattery, that's doing some dynamic work for Workforce Montgomery as well, and others as well, such as Joseph Seymour, Mr. Walter Simmons, that really spoke about the collective impact that we need to have in workforce development. But for me, I'm gonna be a little bit biased. This for me, it was awesome to really hear from Mr. Norton Atterbury, the founder and CEO here of KRA Corporation, and just to hear his journey, just to hear his insight on the state of workforce development, not only in the state of Maryland, but also this workforce development from a national perspective as well. So I really feel like the listening audience truly going to have an opportunity to hear from some dynamic individuals that's our trailblazers within the workforce development space. But please, I don't want to leave out, and I start calling names, I'm going to miss folks, but I don't want to leave out the conversation around the wholeness and the wellness of women in the workforce development space here as well. So this for the listening audience, I truly want you guys to sit back and just enjoy the ride that we're going to take you on as it relates to this particular podcast right here, because not for the sake of repeating myself, but it was some very dynamic conversations and some very robust conversations that came from out of this podcast series right here. So we have something for everyone. If you are a woman in workforce development, we have something for you. If you are an inspiring CEO in workforce development, we have something for you. If you are a workforce development professional that just starting your journey in workforce development, we have something for you. If you are trying to figure out how KRA have been able to grow leaders within the workforce development space, we have something for you as well. So we have something for everyone as it relates to your journey here in workforce development. And you are a business owner that's looking to hire workforce development individuals or our job seekers, we have something for you as well. So here again, we have a very robust conversation in from all different angles as it relates to workforce development and community economic development here. So that would be my takeaway.
Well, I appreciate that, Derek. And I believe as well that our audience is going to enjoy these episodes. And again, we want to highlight that this is a series. So if you're catching us part 2 or part 3 of this series, make sure you go back and listen to some of the other episodes. But with that being said, at this time, we will transition to our episodes that we recorded at Raising the Bar in Maryland.
All right, welcome back to KRA's The Hub podcast. We are here in Maryland at the Raising the Bar conference, and we're having conversations with leaders in workforce, also a number of organizations, companies that are here that are providing services to the public and partnering with workforce agencies. And so I'm joined again by my co-host, Derek Colberg, my colleague here at KRA. And we also have a special guest with us that we're going to have a conversation with, Jody Mitchell. He's the CEO of Directed Analytics. Jody, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Jonathan and Derek.
Well, let's jump right in. Tell us, what is Directed Analytics? What is it that you do, and your role with the organization as CEO?
Yes, I founded Directed Analytics to develop a framework and software that would apply engineering methods for problem solving to non-engineering problems. And that framework is called Foresight GPS. And we have applied that engineering method to the use case of developing employability skills for individuals who are underserved and underrepresented, and those more so look like individuals that may have experienced some level of trauma as a youth, and that kind of impedes their ability to be able to obtain and maintain employment. And so we do the evaluations and assess individuals and help to develop them from that perspective. And then also neurodivergent individuals with ADHD, for example, or autism spectrum disorder, focusing on their executive functioning skills, such as an individual who may be diagnosed with ADHD may have challenges prioritizing tasks, or an individual who may be diagnosed with autism may have challenges from the standpoint of collaborating with in a team environment, for example. So those are the types of challenges that we apply our methods to in order to help individuals reach their goals.
That's great. And so describe for us a little bit about how these techniques are applied to the end user.
Sure. So the very first part about what we do is we evaluate an individual, and we have what we call the 10 key tenets of employability. And an example of those, two of those would be workplace communication or workload management. And we look at a job requisition or descriptions of our requirements of a particular occupation, and we align the individual's strength areas to those and evaluate that individual to understand what their baseline is. And then we come up with an employability index. And so what that employability index tells us is, hey, based on this occupation that you want to pursue, you're at about a 50%. And in order to obtain and maintain employment, you need to be at about an 80%. So from there, what we do is develop the initial set of activities or interventions needed to close that gap between that 50% and that 80% index.
Thank you for that, Jody. Can you let the listening audience know exactly the areas that you currently operate in from a geographical perspective?
Sure. Our principal office is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and we currently have a contract with a workforce development program in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They're called EmployBR, and we are focused on underserved and underrepresented individuals. And one thing that I didn't mention earlier, in the underserved, underrepresented individual use case, there's more of a trauma-informed care. So for example, an individual as a youth may have experienced some type of trauma from an authority figure, which translates into their ability or their inability to accept constructive criticism from an authority figure. So that could cause some challenges in a work environment. So for that particular piece, what we do is we have a clinical psychologist We apply our technology and our approach, but we also have a clinical psychologist that supports the evaluations and the interventions from that perspective. We also just finished a contract at Texas Mutual, they're a workers' compensation insurance company, where we had students come in who were neurodivergent from an internship perspective. We evaluated those individuals, developed those individuals, and provided training for the company, the corporation, as far as how to, from an environment perspective, and how to support individuals.
Thank you for that. What made you want to start this company and really focus on the special needs population?
Sure. So I'm an engineer by trade, and as I was working and solving problems, I had a rotation that I didn't work necessarily around engineers, but more so from a management perspective. I had management that was saying, hey, we need to do this, and this is how you need to do it. And over time, we just were spinning our wheels, if you will. And I said, hey, this isn't the problem. We need to do this. And this is the reason why. And so we did it, and it started working. Mm-hmm. And I had a aha moment that was, well, not everybody thinks like an engineer. So how can I develop an ability for someone that doesn't think like an engineer to still get the same results as an engineer? And what I started doing was developing that from a concept perspective, and then we had an early version of our software. And so we took that early version of our software, and we had an opportunity at a community college in Baton Rouge to apply that to the use case of developing employability skills for individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities, so cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, for example. And the program director, he was able to, within the first year of standing up community job sites, so just local jobs, people that would hire individuals, he was able to place 25 of his students in internships and 7 in permanent jobs. And from there, what we did was we kept in touch. He later left that community college, and we kept in touch and said, hey, it would be cool if we applied for National Science Foundation Small Business Technology Transfer Research and Development grant. So we did that, and we got awarded the phase 1, and we just finished. We're just wrapping that up this year, and we developed the initial set of algorithms for automating the evaluation process as well as automating the development process there. And so that's how we got started there. And we just submitted our phase 2 application as well.
That's great work. Thank you for that. When you think about your software and the population that it provides workforce solutions for, as a workforce board member, or even as a workforce leader, let me ask you a better question. As a workforce leader or a workforce provider, what's the value added to my organization for me to purchase your software from you?
Yes, and so we've conducted a lot of discovery sessions, and across what we call the employment ecosystem. Okay, so within that, what we have is basically 2 problems, and one is categorized as technical, and the other is education workforce. The problem from a technical perspective in general is that when it comes to organizations, let's say Johnny goes from a higher ed program, from a K-12 program to a workforce development program or a higher ed program. The school district, that information, so the individualized education plan or historical records, isn't necessarily transferred over to the next supporting organization. Our platform enables these organizations to effectively follow individuals throughout their development journey. So that's one way. Another way is that when it comes to being able to coordinate across multiple agencies, supporting agencies, that's a challenge there. So you have this organization in their silo and this organization in their silo, but there's barriers when it comes to collaboration, coordination, communication. And so that's another problem that we solve. Mm-hmm. And then from an education workforce perspective, you have baby boomers that have retired and baby boomers that will be retiring. And then you have a pipeline that doesn't have enough incoming educators, especially a lot of that subject matter expertise is going to be lost as people retire. They've been doing this for years and years and years. So you don't have enough to replace them to keep up with, and even just to keep up with the need, the demand there. And so we solved that, and we talked about the automation process that we're doing from our technology. And that's going to take some time to develop from a data perspective and developing the technology. But within our system right now, you can go in and see what was successful for Johnny. And Jane may have a similar goal with a similar diagnosis, and you can reference that information. A new educator can reference that information so they're not starting from scratch. So that would be the benefit to a workforce program, as well as the ability to have metrics. So you're able to understand and have transparency into what your vendors are doing, how effective they are, what is the return on investment for the spend that I have for this particular vendor.
Thank you for that. In the world of business, we always think about what's next. How do we scale? So what is your growth strategy or your growth plan for the next 10 years? And what areas outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, are you looking to actually scale up and scale into?
Yes, absolutely. So where we are right now is we're proving the benefits of our platform at the local level. So we have the contract and local employment workforce development program. And what we're working to do now is connect a small part of the ecosystem. So we're having conversations with Pine Bluff, a school district in Pine Bluff, University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, and then the Vocational Rehabilitation Agency. So we want to show the benefits of having a connected ecosystem. We also submitted a USDA phase 1 research and development effort to basically do that and develop the cost-benefit analysis report that we can then socialize and say, hey, these are the benefits locality, these are the benefits state of having a connected ecosystem. And so to answer your question is we're basically kind of taking this crawl, walk, run approach. And so we're starting with the locality and going to connect a small part of the employment ecosystem. What we plan on doing, and from a future perspective, what that looks like is having this at a state level. So it's something that the school districts use, the higher ed programs use, and the workforce development programs and state vocational rehabilitation agencies use.
That's great. Jody, I love your story, what you're doing with directed analytics. You know, one of the things we talk about in workforce development is that so many people were in a previous industry utilizing their skill sets, and they found themselves in workforce development. I love how you've taken engineering techniques and the practice to help solve an issue within workforce development. Being that you're here at Raising the Bar here in Maryland, I'm sure engaging with a lot of other leaders in workforce development. What are some of the themes that you're seeing or hearing as you've been engaging with individuals here? Anything in particular that's been emphasized in so far at this conference as you've been talking to other leaders within workforce?
Yes, and as you were asking the question, it made me think of a conversation that I had, which is the reason why I came to the conference. It was someone that worked in workforce in Maryland, and we were having the conversation about just data challenges and being able to share data across different organizations and have that collaboration. So that is something that I understand is a challenge from that perspective. And also today I had some conversations with different individuals, but and to some extent and to many extents, if you will, they echoed some of the things that we were talking about as far as the technical challenges. And I was talking to one gentleman, and he was saying, hey, if I had your platform and I can go to a school, a K-12 school, and use this and say, hey, you were supposed to, where did you fare on this one? You were supposed to complete this. And I'm able to interact with my case management system seamlessly. using your platform, I can take your platform, but also I'm able to interact with my case management system. He's like, this would be excellent. And so I'm hearing about, and it was just exciting to have that conversation, but I'm hearing about how this could be applied to support the different workflows for the different practitioners in workforce.
That's great. Well, I know I've learned so much just hearing your approach and what your company's doing, and it's exciting to see what's happening in this workforce space, and look forward to us as an organization as well, staying in contact with you about what's to come in the future. Now, for our audience, we have individuals that are leaders in workforce, people that are working on the front lines as well. How can folks learn more about what you're doing and get in touch with you if they're interested in exploring more about the software and the assessment system?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, Jody Mitchell, and Directed Analytics, as well as my email address. My email address is jmitchell, it's 2 L's, at Directed, DIRECTED, Analytics, ANALYTICS.com.
All right. Well, again, thank you, Jody, for joining us here at Raising the Bar, taking the time to share with us and our audience about what you're doing with Directed Analytics. And hopefully our paths cross again in the future. And wish you a great remainder of this Raising the Bar conference.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a blessed week.
You too. All right, we are back here with KRA's The Hub podcast here in Maryland at Raising the Bar Conference. Today is day 2. I'm joined by my colleague, Derek Colbert, here with KRA, and also Joseph Seymour, who is the owner of Manifest Maximum, and we're having conversations with leaders, influencers within workforce development. And Joseph is a former colleague of ours here at KRA, and for a number of years, when I first came on board with KRA, he was one of the first people that I met outside of my local organization. And when I think of KRA, I think of Joseph Seymour and his tenure. And so we're excited to catch up with so many great people here at the conference, but now we have an opportunity to catch up with Joseph. Joseph, welcome to KRA's The Hub podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this and this conversation. It's good to see both of you, work with you, both of you closely. I was thinking in my mind, you're JO and you're DC, because that's how we email in KRA. It's always abbreviated. But I work with both of you gentlemen closely, and so I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Jonathan, for a good while, it was me and you, just making things happen, and Derek came on and helped out in DC tremendously. But then just watching you move in the business development space, I learned a lot. You move quietly, but you move big. You know what I mean? I just watch how you kind of jumped in and figured out, okay, I know how to make this work. So I'm excited about this opportunity to talk to both of you, because both of you impacted me, especially in my last 3 or 4 years at KRA. So.
Thank you, and likewise as well. So tell us, how are things going with Manifest Maximum, and tell us some updates about how things are going in that space.
Great, yeah. I actually just celebrated a 1 year of Manifest Maximum on Labor Day weekend. I launched officially September 1st of 2023. So we actually had a big cookout at the house and had a big celebration, and it's really been a great year. They say when you start a business, your first year is usually your worst year. So if this is my worst year, I'm really excited about what's going to happen. I'm proud that KRA is one of my clients. I'm the one-stop operator in Baltimore County here in Maryland. But I get to do it's the variety of work I get to do every day, and the work that I've done throughout the year. I've done several speaking engagements, some training. But I've done some exciting work in the space of strategic planning, which I'm finding is to be something I really enjoy. So I've done some strategic planning for nonprofit organizations as well as workforce development boards. I'm also providing some organizational coaching and leadership for a youth project in St. Louis for one of my clients, which is closely connected to the work I used to do with KRA, especially my last role as Managing Director of Operational Excellence. So it's been a wide gamut of stuff. Nonprofit, workforce boards, working with service provider. So my client list is a kind of mix of so many people that kind of touch this space. And I'm busy. I was in the hotel instead of at the social last night. I was doing client work because I had to get some reports done for a big strategic planning project I'm working on now for a nonprofit in Hartford. And I will say this, and this is what surprised me the most about going independent, if you will, because it's not really independent, is how much of the work that we do in this space as a consultant is in partnership with other consultants. So people you would think would be your competitors. All of my work for the last year has been as a sub for another consultant. So I've been able to partner with Workforce 180, Mike Fazio and Jerry and team. We've done some work together. I'm working with another organization in Hartford called Eli Patrick and Company, and as a sub, coming in and providing expertise on the project. And I didn't realize that was going to be the bulk of the work so far. So the next phase for me is figuring out how do I become the prime on some contracts so then I can bring in some other folks to work with me. And that's what I'm looking to focus on in this next year of my journey.
Thank you for that, Joseph. And first and foremost, I just want to say that you one of the people that I truly respect within this workforce development industry. So I just wanted to go on record and let you know that as well. And when I first joined KRA, the level of respect that the founder and the CEO had for you speaks volumes, right? So when I think about someone that decided to take the leap of faith and go out on your own and start your own business, and you are one of the renowned, sought-after speakers, trainers, and also what I just learned this morning is a strategic planner as well. So can you let the listening audience know exactly how did KRA prepare you for you to go out on your own and launch your own business?
Yeah, so I'm unapologetic and very clear that who I am today and what I'm able to do today, I almost owe single-handedly to my experience at KRA. As a person of faith, I attribute God, of course, first, but from a professional standpoint, it really is all KRA. Now, I know that all KRA can really do is provide opportunities and platforms. You got to show up, but those platforms and opportunities really made me who I am today. I've been in workforce development for 17 years. 15 of those years were with KRA. That's been my career, and I started as I got hired as a job developer under a contract in Connecticut and became a reemployment coach, became a trainer, subject matter expert, and then was promoted to a corporate position of training and development coordinator. And then the surprise of my life was Ms. Atterbury calls me up and says, "Hey, I think I want you to manage all of our projects." And I was sharing in my session I did yesterday that I went from managing no one but me to managing all the projects literally in one jump. And I learned so much by just doing, you know what I mean? So I was a training development coordinator for several years, so I was the one doing the trainings. So I can't necessarily tell you that there was a training that so much taught me, but it was just the day-to-day work. And I think both of you can attest to working with Mr. Nolan Atterbury is like, it's school. Like, it really is. Like, and he's not necessarily trying to teach you. He's just trying to get things done, but you learn so much. And I didn't realize how much I learned until I was outside of it, because I find myself always going back to some of those things that he would always say. And so, even the strategic planning work I do when I work with other clients, so much of my perspective is how we did business in KRA. I didn't realize how great our back office was at KRA until I got out and saw some other organizations. And and you work with folks and you ask people, y'all do it like that, or you don't have this, because it was just so I was just so used to it. And I've had to go back to Zaskia Rui several times to say thank you. But it was those things. It was the back office, the way the business of KRA was probably the biggest lesson. And I know KRA is renowned for their service, how they provide services. But to me, where I'm at as a consultant, I dig more into the business side of KRA than I do the actual techniques that we and best practices in providing services. That's the stuff I'm bringing to clients now, honestly. I can sit down with boards. I could sit down with providers, sit down and just share the stuff that I learned working at KRA. That's always the bedrock. But I will say, and we can joke about it now, I think all of us have probably had our KA origin stories. Mr. Atterbury, how that first meeting or that first month of meetings, and it's like, whew, all right. But once you settle in, and I know Derek and both of you can, but once you figure it out and you learn the rhythm of it, it makes you better because now you know what he's going to ask because he's asking you specific questions to get you to shift your thinking about the business. That bottom line perspective, which is, it took me a while to understand it. I know I see y'all can't see us. We're all nodding our heads because we all understand. We have that shared experience. And once you get over the shock, because there is a shock, you start realizing like, okay, he's putting me on game. I get it. And now when you go to other situations, it's like you approach it from a different mindset. And that's so invaluable. That's why I'm always going to be thankful to Mr. Atterbury for that specifically. It's just shaped how I go after everything, how I look at everything. That bottom line, business, what are the results, what's the impact, is it working or isn't work? Is not. If it's not working, why are we still doing it? Like that kind of stuff. That's the foundation of what I do. So,
thank you for that. My next question, I really want you to, if I may, get you to switch from your consultant to your speaker hat for a minute. When you think about young folks that's coming up in the workforce development industry, what advice would you give them to make sure that they can have the longevity career that you had within workforce development? 17 years. I mean, that's not something someone should just gloss over. Especially in workforce development. When you think about workforce development, when you think about community economic development, when you think about this economic development in general, and here at the conference, we have seen a lot of young people here at the conference that's started their journey in workforce development. What advice would you give to them to really motivate them for them to understand how to have that longevity in workforce development?
I think the first thing I would do is, don't say no to any opportunity. So when opportunities come to work on, like on a special project, or to do something like explore all the options. I think that's so critical that you have that you learn as much as you can. That's number one. And sometimes you learn as much as you can by doing. So when opportunities come, volunteer for stuff. And I know that's probably not popular, but because you can learn so much. And then the other part of that is you start networking, you start learning different individuals. I think it's good to get a mentor, somebody you can work with, who can provide some coaching. I think learning is so important, and I think you can't wait for your organization to make you learn or to invest in your learning. I'm a big, I believe that you're responsible for your own learning. So be proactive in that. Learn as much as you can. Learn more than you need to know, because you'll be surprised the opportunity will present itself, and you'll be able to show up in a way. And I think that just being courageous and to take risks sometimes, do something that seems like you can't do, go for it. Go for it. But build networks, learn as much as you can, find a mentor, somebody who's in the industry who's doing something that you like. You'll be surprised, especially in our space. We're usually generous with our time, so it's easy probably to find a mentor and just set up like a monthly call, or I do that now. I do coaching for some folks at KRA, for some of the leaders there. And it's not a paid contract. It's just because of relationship, and I work with one of your directors. We meet every week, every Tuesday at 3:00. We jump on the Zoom and we're able to just build relationship and just grow. So I think that's another critical piece too.
Joseph, you mentioned your experience with KRA working, training development, and one of the flagship elements of that was Leadership Edge.
Oh, yeah.
And so I want you to talk a little bit about your experience there, participating in it, but also helping to lead that initiative, and how impactful it was in your tenure with helping to shape leaders within the company, but also your own personal experience in that.
So I'll say first, I think that part of the secret to KRA success, I think Leadership Edge is a big part of it. I think Leadership Edge is the reason why to this day I have a great relationship with Anthony Featherstone, who's executive director of Workforce Montgomery, because we grew up in Leadership Edge. I have a great relationship with Maxine Chang, who's the vice president with a career team. I always say we grew up in Leadership Edge. Like Jonathan, we grew up in leadership. It's just how we built relationship. We would have these, sessions all day, but then we would hang out all night, and we became family. So I think that's such a critical component to KRA's DNA for success. First of all, my experience with it is I've had different relationships with Leadership Edge. When I first saw it was probably back in 2010, 2011. And at that point in time, I think I was providing more technical support to Kimberly Staley, who's another KRA alumni who is now a DOL Region 3 administrator. It was just like I think I might have been doing slides and something for her and making sure the computer worked. So I was in the room with all the other program directors. And then I went on to before I was a participant, I was actually an instructor, which was really weird. So I was doing training at Leadership Edge before I ever went through it. And I never forget, they realized that after a couple of years, they're like, you never actually did Leadership Edge as a participant. And I think they said, well, let's invite you to actually come be a part of it. Because I was just come and train and then go back to Connecticut. But I finally, after 2 or 3 years, was able to participate, and then later on in my tenure, I was able to take lead in the initiative, and I think it's a critical part of KRA's success, and I hope that KRA keeps it and invests in it strong. I think it's one of the things that really builds the bench, as Mr. Atterbury would say, but I think it builds that sense of family and community in the organization, and it helps just develop talent. So I think it's a critical part. Is probably my favorite component of KRA in my experience has been Leadership Edge, for sure.
That's great. Now, we've talked about a lot, what you're currently doing, your experience with KRA. One thing that I would say is part of the DNA of who we are is the mission and the vision of the company and the culture. How does that stick with you today and a part of what you're currently doing?
So I will speak probably more to the culture than the mission and vision, because I think that KRA has always been rich in culture. And it's been those intangible things, I think, that helps this organization stand out in the industry. I remember growing up in KRA, I remember the pride I used to feel going to a conference like this, and we'd have 20, 25 folks dressed up. We'd be the only ones at the conference dressed up, shirt, tie, but that was part of the brand. It was part of that culture, and I loved that part of it. I loved people being able to look at you and say, oh, you part of KRA, huh? Just based on how you look. And then it's like this, KRA has this little edge, this scrappiness, like, if you, I hope I'm not divulging secrets, but if you didn't know better, you would probably think that KRA was like this $50 million company with 600 employees, just because of the way KRA will come to a conference and it was that swag, it was that thing, right? And I remember the first time I went to headquarters, I was like, this is it? I was expecting to see the hall, Justice Hall, because KRA was just so big. It was such a big presence, and I think that was that culture. There was an excellence there. There was, and I think that the fact that we're having this conversation about KRA alumni and doing great work outside of KRA is this carryover of that excellence, like nothing less than excellence. That's one thing that KRA instills. We're going to do everything excellently. That good business acumen on the back end, that good vendor relations. We're going to serve the vendor. We're going to that focus on performance. Like that's all stuff that I can't. It's become who I am as well. And anywhere I go, I'm bringing that with me. I'm bringing it with me because it's part of who I am. So, that culture piece is like, that's what makes KRA for sure.
That's great. I think you captured the essence of that so perfect. I'm sure we could probably do a whole nother episode just on stories alone of some of the things that have transpired over the years. I think that this time today was really valuable for our audience, just your journey, what you're currently doing, and how that was shaped in much part by the experiences along the way.
Absolutely.
And it's great to be able to talk about that and to reflect on that. And, you know, as I said earlier, we've worked in the trenches together and from afar on various projects. And so I want
both of us.
That's right. Yeah.
Listen, Derek and I had to roll up our sleeves. We looked at some impossible tasks and we had to figure it out. Why? Because Mr. Atterbury says we got to get it done, and that thing, you know, I'm so thankful for. And when you're in it, it's painful, and when you're in it, it's like working out. It doesn't feel good a lot of times, but on the back end, you realize you're stronger because of it. That really is how I feel, and you know, and I'll say it. I say it in sessions. That's my real, honest assessment of my experience with KRA. I learned so much invaluable. I learned more in 2 years in that last role than people probably can learn in 10, 15 years, just because of the strong business acumen that Mr. Atterbury instilled in me in 2 years, like 2 years, you know, and I'm forever appreciative of that. So
it's an on-the-job MBA. Right
for
there,
like for real, real. And I don't think he realizes it, but the way he interacts with us, the questions he asks, it forces you to. You can't help but have good business, because he's going to be good business. Mm-hmm. You know, so I learned that business side of the work so much from just that relationship with him. So.
That's great. Well, I want to thank you for your time, Joseph.
Thank you.
At this conference. It was great to reconnect with familiar faces and new people as well here. And how can those that are listening in the audience learn more about what you're doing, follow you, get in contact with Manifest Maximum?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, you can go to www.manifestmaximum.com. That's my webpage, and there is a form in the bottom where you can fill out an inquiry form, and we'll reach out to you. By email, jlseymour@manifestmaximum.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, very active on there. You can find me. Just search my name under Joseph Seymour. And if there's any way that we can partner and to help your organization grow, I would love to be a part of that.
Derek, Joseph, thank you once again.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to KRA's The Hub. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. To learn more about KRA Corporation, visit www.kra.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.